Hello, my name is Ahmed Awad. My student ID is 221308. Today I will talk about the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster that happened in the United States of America. I will discuss details of the disaster, the ethical violations related to it, the resulting events of the disaster, and the lessons learned. Now I will show you the outline of this presentation. First, I will introduce the topic and what kind of professional misconduct had been committed. Then I will describe the disaster in detail, starting with the story behind the disaster and then the ethical violations committed and finally the results of the disaster and what we learned from it. Once done, I will conclude this presentation. In the introduction, I will say that this disaster shows us the consequences of overruling technical advice and decisions. To explain what that means, it means that when a manager ignores the engineer's advice on how to plan or build a project the engineer is working on. Now, we will go into the story of how the disaster happened. The companies involved in this disasters were NASA, which is a government-funded organization for space exploration and administration. The other company was a rubber and chemical materials company called Morton Thiokol that was a contractor and was working with NASA on its space shuttle Challenger mission. The goal of that mission was to send a shuttle to space to deploy commercial satellites and study Halley's Comet. After they finished working on the shuttle, engineers from both companies had discovered that the seal used in the construction of the shuttle wasn't tested in extreme cold temperature, which matched the space temperature. The engineers had notified the manager of both companies before the day of the launch, but unfortunately, the managers ignored the advice because they apparently favored following the schedule and fell outside pressures, so they didn't allow more effort and time to fix the issues in the shuttle. So, on the day of the launch, January 28, 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger launched from Florida, but after 72 seconds of the liftoff in the cold atmosphere of the sky, the seal couldn't handle the temperature and started breaking, which leaked some gas fuel into the rocket and the atmosphere, causing a chemical reaction with the liquid oxygen and hydrogen, causing the shuttle to burn and then completely explode, killing 7 astronauts that were inside and marking itself as the first American spacecraft accident in history that changed NASA forever. Now we will move on to the ethical violations that happened in the story I have explained so far. First, engineers were supposed to hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare to the public. This is section 2.1. This is also related to the principle that says if engineers' judgment is overruled under circumstances where the safety, health, property, or welfare of the public are endangered, they should notify their employer or client and such the other authority as may be appropriate. This is section 2.1.a from the National Code of Ethics. What happened was clearly overruling technical decisions that harmed the public. Both managers have violated the principle of acknowledging errors and not distorting or altering facts. This is from section 3.1.a. Both NASA and Morton Thiokol management violated this principle also when they proceeded with the launch while knowing the risk of an explosion that ended the lives of 7 astronauts. They ignored the warning of professional engineers who had knowledge about the seal used in the space rockets. Engineers who were supposed to strive to serve the public interest at all times. I have just referenced section 3.2. Both companies deserve to be penalized heavily for their actions and overruling technical decisions, in my opinion. The government funding should have prevented such accidents. Engineers are also expected to not injure or maliciously or falsely, directly or indirectly, the professional reputation, prospects, practice, or employment of other engineers, and to report unethical or illegal practices to the proper authorities. I have just referenced section 3.7. Now, from what we've known or heard so far, it's clear that the damage caused didn't just damage the company's reputation, but also the reputation of the engineering profession as a whole, after I referenced the following sections from the Code of Ethics or the National Code of Ethics. Now I will move on to the results. The disaster forced both companies to use stricter safety protocols and encouraged an environment where professional and management can freely communicate and listen to concerns to prevent any more disasters. The Rogers Commission's report faulted NASA as a whole for allowing this shuttle launch without any checks for safety. In conclusion, having managers whose decisions can end or save lives handle a situation like this with negligence makes me not want to work ever under such managers who are negligent. Engineers should also be brave and always voice their concerns to ensure that no disasters like that happen. That is the end of this presentation.